8 o'clock.
Well, don't feel bad. It took me an hour and a half.
When will the test be available?
If it's due on the 28th, I'll probably make it available like the 21st or the 22nd.
Okay.
Yeah, usually have a good 6 to 7 days to get it completed. Okay, so we left off at the point of the thyroid gland because once again, we're working in this endocrine system. And for the endocrine system, remember, it's one of the two systems that controls the body. But once again, this endocrine system is controlled by the hypothalamus. Two of our hormones that are extremely important that we pretty much need all the time. Growth hormone, thyroid hormone. Because these are the hormones that are going to help us use our nutrients. So we're going to be getting the help to use the nutrients from the food we consume and air that we breathe. So our thyroid hormone has what we call a calorigenic effect. And that means our ability to use oxygen. Because oxygen, do you guys remember what process in the cell we said requires oxygen? To make ATP, which is our cellular respiration. So calories mean work. All right, so that was the point we left off. On the posterior side of the thyroid gland are these 4 glands called the parathyroid glands. They secrete, ta-da, parathyroid hormone. But look at this hormone. This one, not under the control of the pituitary gland. PTH is not under the control of the pituitary gland. What it does respond to is calcium levels in the blood. Now remember, it's areas of the brain, i.e. those primitive portions, that are monitoring levels of everything just about in our blood. They have their communication, that midbrain and that diencephalon, they have their communication by way of monitoring levels in the blood. So parathyroid hormone, don't get these confused, because we're getting ready to talk about another one for when calcium levels are high. Parathyroid hormone will be secreted when calcium levels are low. Up to this point, what do we know about the activities of the body that require calcium? Muscle contraction requires it.
Bone structure.
Nerve conduction. Everything in the body. Because how many muscle types are there? 3. So I'm talking about the function of my skeletal muscles, the function of my heart muscle, the function of my smooth muscle and the nerve conduction going to it needing calcium. Calcium is one of those electrolytes because it's Ca2+, okay? Calcium is something the body monitors very close. It does not allow it to go up and down in huge amounts. It only allows for a little bit of leeway, too high or too low, very small. So if the numbers are low, we need to make sure that we bring calcium levels back up. Parathyroid hormone, note what it does. Stimulates reabsorption. What does it mean to reabsorb?
Take back in.
We've already absorbed it once, so we now have to do it twice. So we're taking it back from the first time. So reabsorption from the bone, breaking it down, getting the calcium, because remember, the hardness of bone is calcium phosphate. So if I break it down, I release calcium and phosphate to the blood. If I do that, I raise my calcium levels in the blood. Does that make sense? Which is important for nerve conduction and muscle contraction.
What are the normal levels and how much bone has to be broken down in order to reach that?
I will look that up. I don't walk around with those numbers in my head, but I'll look that up.
I can look it up.
Well, I want to know now too.
Yeah.
I'll go back and look at it again. The other part of this, it's going to make sure that in our urine, we do not excrete any of the calcium. Under normal conditions, these electrolytes, if they're too much in our body, we can urinate them out. But if we don't have enough, it'll act on the kidneys to make sure we retain the calcium. Does that make sense? So my parathyroid hormone acts for when the calcium levels are too low. If we look back to my thyroid, now remember, the parathyroids are on the posterior side. What did my thyroid gland respond to for calcium? If the calcium levels were too high, that caused the calcium to be deposited in the bone. Parathyroid is for too low. So they're working to make sure calcium levels are acceptable in the blood. The adrenal glands. The triangle that sits on top of the kidneys. One over each kidney. One of the things about the adrenal medulla has that outer portion as well as an inner portion. So the inner portion is known as the medulla. The outer portion is my cortex. The medulla of my adrenal gland, if you remember, those are modified cells and they synapse directly with a sympathetic fiber. So into that medulla, where it's specialized cells, it synapses directly on a sympathetic fiber in my autonomic nervous system. What did the sympathetic division do to our bodies? Do what? It sped things up.
Is it parasympathetic or sympathetic?
Sympathetic.
It says spells that wrong.
Oh!
It does,
Thank you. All right, y'all. Take that out, okay? Thank you. So, the sympathetic is what we use to get the increase in the heart rate, increase in the blood flow, increase in oxygen, all these other things, because that prepares us for fight or flight. Does everybody remember that? Now, here's the thing. We're going to see that it's both endocrine and a part of the sympathetic nervous system. A lot of these areas, a lot of these glands with the endocrine system are doing that, okay? Some of them are very dual in nature. When it is activated, do you guys remember epinephrine, norepinephrine, parts that are released? We learned that those were neurotransmitters, all right? However, have a very hormone effect, all right? So when that sympathetic fiber synapses on the medulla, it can release epinephrine, norepinephrine, and traces of dopamine. Don't talk about that one a whole lot, mainly because, like it says, the functions are way too numerous to discuss. Now, under the case of epinephrine, one thing to know, glucose sparing. This means it is going to allow those areas of the body that are getting activated, for example, skeletal muscle, because your body's preparing to fight or flee, okay? So blood and stuff is going to the skeletal muscle. It's going to need to make the energy for it. So it will allow the body to make the glucose from other materials, i.e., my fatty acids. Because the glucose that is readily available, the one thing the body wants to do